So now we are going to start covering the macroeconomic topics of the AS component of your A-level economics. But before I go into the details of any particular macroeconomic theory or one of the macroeconomic models that is part of your course, I first of all want to start off by making the basic distinction between these two branches, micro and macroeconomics. And the way you are supposed to think about the difference between micro and macro is to start thinking of a microscope. Micro basically means small, and a microscope is a sort of a tool that doctors and biologists use to sort of zoom in and study and analyze one particular cell out of the many thousands of different cells that together make up the entire human body. That is the purpose of a microscope. It allows you to zoom in and focus in on just one small micro little part of the entire human body. Now in economics, you of course don't have microscopes, but what microeconomists have is this tool, this model of demand and supply that we learned in the last section. And with this tool, with this model of demand and supply, what microeconomists do is that they study one single individual unit of the entire economy at a time. Now, what is this entire economy composed of? Well, this entire economy would be producing many different goods such as footballs and cars and shoes and clothes and bikes and many other things. So there would be a market for each of these different individual products, and all of these little small individual markets together make up the entire individual economy. And microeconomic analysis is when using this model of demand and supply, you zoom in and pick up the market of one individual product, let's say such as footballs, and then you look at the demand of these footballs and the supply of these footballs, which tell you the price and quantity of the single individual product, the footballs, and nothing else about anything else going on in the economy. So micro level analysis, you are analyzing the market of one individual product, and therefore you are basically concerned with one particular small unit of the entire economy. Macroeconomics, on the other hand, is the total opposite in the sense that instead of zooming in and focusing on one particular individual product's market, in macroeconomics, you zoom out. So instead of a microscope, think about something like a drone camera. So you zoom out and you view the entire country as one single whole unit. So you don't think about all of these individual products market. You think about the entire country as one single big market, and you think about this whole thing as one single whole economy. That is how we define macroeconomics, the study of the entire economy as one single whole unit. And when we look at the entire country as one single unit, at this entire economy as just one single thing, then instead of talking about individual variables such as the price of individual products and the quantity of individual products, in macroeconomics, we discuss and we talk about aggregate total variables such as the total output that the country produces every year. And similarly, instead of talking about individual products prices, we talk about the overall average price level that exists in the macroeconomy. And then instead of talking about employment in a particular region or a particular industry, we talk about total employment in the entire country. So that is what we mean by aggregate variables, total. So we look at total employment, total labor force, total output, average price of all the different goods. And similarly, we talk about other aggregate concepts such as the balance of payments of the country. Now this simply means, let me tell you quickly what balance of payments is. You see, each country has some sort of international dealings with other countries, such as exports and imports of goods and services, such as foreign direct investment and for international loans that countries give and take from each other. And because of all of these different international transactions, every year a certain amount of money will flow into the country from other countries, and some amount of money will flow out of Pakistan and move into other countries. And this balance of payments account, which is a very, very important economic indicator, it basically is sort of an annual bank statement of the entire country, which records the total inflows and the outflows that are taking place during that particular given year. So that is another, you can say, an aggregate macro level thing that we talk about, the country's balance of payments. And related to that is then the idea of the country's exchange rate, which is sometimes simply defined as the price of the country's currency in terms of the international currency of dollars. So Pakistan, if it has an exchange rate of $0.5 per rupee, then this is where we are saying that, look, if you go to a money changer and pay him $0.5, in return he will give you 1 rupee. So exchange rate is the price of this rupee in terms of this international currency of the US dollar. Again, this is a macro level aggregate variable, because you see exchange rate, when it changes, then the price of all the country's exports and all of that country's imports, they will change. And the effects of changing exchange rates won't be limited to any particular region or sector or industry. When exchange rates change, their effects, they ripple through the entire economy, through various different sectors and various different industries, and various different economic agents are affected. So again, we say these are exchange rates, these are macroeconomic aggregate level variables. Now, all of these different macro variables that I have jotted down over here, they are sometimes, as I have been referring to them, sometimes they are known as the macroeconomic indicators. That is, these are those variables that indicate and that tell you something about the health of the country's macroeconomy. And these very same indicators are also sometimes alternatively or simultaneously referred to as the objectives of macroeconomic policy, macro policy targets. Because you see, the reason is that if these are the indicators of the health of the country's macroeconomy, this total output and price level and employment and so on and so forth, then these are then the very variables that the people, the government and the policymakers, people who are controlling the macroeconomy, these are the very variables that they try to control and influence. So every government, every macro policy maker tries to somehow ensure that the total output is increasing at a healthy rate. They try to ensure that the average price levels are under control and they are not increasing very rapidly. They try to take measures that will increase the total amount of employment. They will try to balance off the balance of payments and so on and so forth. So they try to control these objectives. They try to move them in the right direction. So these indicators are also known as macro policy objectives. And this is where macroeconomics becomes really interesting. For some people difficult, but for me and most of you who follow this course, the thing that makes macroeconomics interesting, not difficult, interesting, is that all of these different policy objectives, they conflict with each other. Which simply means that, look, if a country is facing some sort of balance of payments problems and issues, then the government, it will have some tools up its sleeve. There are some policies that the government can implement to correct that balance of payment problem. But the issue is that, look, if you implement a policy with the aim that we are trying to correct the balance of payments, yes, you may succeed, but the problem is that that same policy at the same time will either slow down the growth rate of the total output of the country, or it may cause a rapid increase in the price levels of the country, and therefore inflation will be created. That is, you try to correct one of these macro objectives, these macro indicators, and some other macro variable starts moving in the wrong direction. You try to control inflation, you slow down the economic growth of output. You try to increase the output of the economy, your exchange rate may start depreciating. So there are always these conflicts between these different objectives, and that is what makes it interesting. And that is what we have to understand to excel in your A-level exam. How are these different objectives linked with each other? What are the common variables that affect all of these? And understanding those links, as I said, it can be difficult, but you see, economics is a logical subject. So we don't study all of these things randomly. We study them in a very, very structured way, step by step, and build the entire story of macroeconomics. And as we build that story, those links will become very, very obvious, and we will keep everything very, very organized. You will see as we go along. But the important thing that you need to ensure to prepare for your A-level exam and to be efficient about it is that don't go through these videos trying to learn economics and then separately sit down and start preparing through the past papers for your exam. Don't do that. Do both the things, understanding economics and preparing for the exam through past papers. Do that simultaneously. And you won't need a lot of effort because I have done most of the breakdown for you. All you need to ensure and all you need to do is that as you move through this course, after each individual video, you will see a reference to the past paper questions, both essays and MCQs that I want you to attempt. Those are the questions that are relevant to the thing that I explain in that particular video. So you look at those questions. First of all, obviously that will allow you to prepare for your exam and it will allow you to see exactly how a particular topic is tested. But it will also serve as a reinforcement and a revision of whatever I teach you in these videos. Because those questions, they don't require anything other than the knowledge that I gave you in the preceding video. So it's revision, reinforcement, plus preparation for the exam all at one and the same time. So as you move through the section, after every video, go through those questions. By the end of the section, you will be done with the understanding of economics as well as more than 20 years of past paper questions, because that is the coverage that you will get in the essay and MCQ banks that I have included with this video course series.